I have a secret for you. Well, more so, three secrets. And if I'm being honest, they're actually more so tips, but secrets just sounds a lot more compelling. But this video and audio quality, it's not the greatest, so let's head over to my studio here. But you have a problem. You're trying to build muscle, lose fat, get closer to your fitness goals, but you don't have a lot of time. And I get it. I no longer have time to spend multiple hours a day in the gym. And I'm guessing if you're watching this, the same thing applies to you, or maybe you have clients in which you want to help out with in this situation as well. So in today's video, I'm going to go over three things that you can do that can help you if you still want to get to your fitness goals, but you're just short on time and you want to be as efficient as possible when getting to those fitness goals. And I think the third tip might be the most important, so we're going to save that for last. But the very first thing I want to go over is that I think it is important, especially in this situation, that you prioritize and only train muscles that are most important to you. It is far easier to maintain muscle compared to growing muscle. For example, there's research that suggests that you can maintain muscle mass on about 1/9 of the volume or the training stimulus that it takes to grow muscle. So if in a gaining phase, it takes you 15 sets for a certain muscle to grow, well, in a maintenance phase, it's only going to take a few sets to maintain muscle. Now, in general, I recommend doing about a third of the training volume that it takes to gain muscle in a maintenance phase. So if you're at that 15 set mark to grow muscle, well, maybe keep things around about 5 sets in a maintenance phase. But far less time and training volume does it take to actually just maintain your muscle mass. And if you prioritize the muscles that are most important to you, that's going to give you a lot of time back into your schedule. And you could just do a handful of sets for those muscles that you're maintaining, or you could even, it doesn't have to be necessarily maintaining. You could just run a minimum effective dose for those muscles. So let's say that 20 sets is your maximum recoverable volume, but 10 sets is kind of that minimum effective dose in which you see some progress. Well, maybe you keep your muscles that are less priority at that minimum effective dose, and then you push your other muscles that are high priority up to their kind of maximum capacity. For example, for me, I'm kind of the typical bro in which my upper body, my delts, and my arms are kind of my focus point. My chest, I'm okay with just training it at minimum effective volume. Same thing with my back, and of course, same thing with my legs. So with that, I push my volume up in my arms and my delts the most. And then with all of my other muscle groups, I keep it around that kind of maintenance to minimum effective volume dose. And that allows me to be in the gym far less. So tip number one, prioritize the muscles that are most important to you. And it's okay to bring volume down a little bit on those other muscles. And you don't need to try to maximize every single muscle if they're less priority to you. Now, the second tip here is using non-impeding muscle group supersets. So what do I mean by this? Well, what I mean is that let's say, for example, you're doing an arm workout, and in this workout, you're training both your biceps and your triceps. Well, one way to make this workout much more efficient is if after a set of biceps, you do a set of triceps, and then you go back to biceps, and then a set of triceps. So instead of having like your standard 2 minutes of rest after a set of biceps, you actually just go right into triceps. And then you go back to biceps. And this tends to work because while you're training your triceps, your biceps are still getting rest because that tricep set, it's not really impeding your biceps. And this could go for any kind of muscles that don't impede each other. It could be your biceps and calves, or it could be your delts and your hamstrings, just non-impeding muscles. But the way that I would actually perform these is instead of going, so in our biceps and triceps example, instead of going straight to your tricep set after your set of biceps, I would still give yourself about 30 seconds or so between those sets. And the reason for this is to kind of let your systemic fatigue come down a little bit and to catch your breath a little bit, as you don't want to have to stop your set of triceps because you're just kind of winded and you're just kind of under some systemic fatigue. You want to make sure that you're stopping your set of triceps because your triceps were actually the limiting factor. So I would perform a set of biceps, give yourself about 30 seconds, then a set of triceps, same thing, biceps back and forth. And that can be a very efficient way
to not spend a ton of time in the gym just resting and keep your workout at a little bit higher of a pace and get more work in less time. Now, the third and potentially most important tip here is don't waste time just doing things that are largely ineffective. I see this all the time in the gym. Like, I'll have friends that come to me and they say, hey, I just don't have time to train. You know, I go to the gym and then I warm up, and then by the time I actually get to my training, it's like 30 minutes in, and then I feel like I need to stretch or foam roll after I train and stuff like that. And then it just kind of makes me ask more questions like, why are you warming up so long? Why are you foam rolling? Why are you doing these things that aren't necessarily specific to your goal? Now, does this mean that I don't think it's a good idea to warm up or to foam roll or different things like that? No, I think that those things have their place. But I'm saying that if your goal is to build muscle and you're short on time, I do not think that you should be spending a significant amount of time in your warm up. I think you should do what is sufficient to get sufficiently warmed up to go train. So what would that look like? Well, I think a specific warm up is probably best here, to where, let's say your first exercise is a dumbbell bench and you're going to start with 80 pounds. Well, I'll probably do a set of like 5 or 6 with 40 pounds and then work up to about 60 pounds, do a few reps there, and then maybe work up to like one single at like 80, 85 pounds, maybe even a little potentiation set above your working weight. And then you could go into your 80s for like a set of 10 or whatever your working sets are. I think that in most cases, just doing a specific warm up like that is sufficient. And it takes far less time compared to going through like this entire dynamic warm up and stuff just to do kind of your bodybuilding workout. So I think that a lot of people end up spending a lot of time on their warm up, or they spend a lot of time stretching or foam rolling and stuff like that, in which it's not actually productive towards their goals, and it's just taking a lot of time, and they feel like they need to do these things. And when in reality, I don't necessarily see a reason to do these things outside of like specific situations in which you have these like certain mobility restrictions and stuff like that. So if you're just generally doing a long warm up and foam rolling and stretching because you feel like you need to, I don't think you probably do. And I think that you can get away with kind of the bare minimum in those areas and not spend a ton of time on it. And alongside this note, I would also kind of group in resting too long between your sets because you're on your phone. I think it's generally a good idea to keep an eye on the time and how long you're resting. Often clients will report to me that their workouts are taking like a really long time. And then I'll kind of ask, what do your rest times look at? What does your warm up look like? And often they mention, sometimes I get on my phone in my rest times and it ends up taking a few minutes. And if you add that up over across the workout, there's a chance that you're in there for like 15, 20 minutes more than you have to be because you're just resting longer than what's needed. And in general, I recommend on isolation lifts, 1 to 2 minutes between sets. Compound lifts, 2 to 4 minutes is a good kind of general rule there. So be cognizant of your rest times, and then also don't perform exercises that are largely ineffective for your goal. For example, exercises that don't provide a lot of stability. So like a Bosu ball squat or a single leg squat or something like that. These exercises don't allow you to produce much force because you're unstable, and it largely results in not allowing you to provide an effective stimulus on a per set basis compared to something that is more effective. Also, if you're very short on time, maybe avoid doing single arm movements and perform most of your movements both arms at a time. So instead of doing like a single arm cable curl, maybe just do a double arm cable curl, as that should save some time because you don't have to just perform one arm at a time, taking a little bit longer. All right, so prioritize the muscles that are most important to you, use non-impeding muscle group supersets, and just be cognizant of making sure that when you're in the gym, you are doing effective things for your goal and not wasting a lot of time on things that are potentially quite a bit less effective. Now, another problem that people have is that they don't necessarily know how fast they should be progressing each week over week, or how that progression should look and things like that. So if that's you, you can watch this video here on the screen about progressive overload. Overload that subscribe button. That was very cheesy, and I will see you in that next one.